Hello, ladies and gentlemen. As you all know, all of the UEFA tournaments have conducted their draw. First, we saw the Champions League draw, and then the Europa and Conference League draw proceeded the next day. Now, as soon as the Champions League draw ended, I recorded and edited my very early predictions for that tournament. And as you can see for the Europa League and soon to be the Conference League, I am taking my time with these videos in particular. But nevertheless, I set a like target for that Champions League prediction video, and I said if we hit a certain amount, I believe I said 2,000, that I would also give out my Europa and Conference League predictions. And you guys absolutely smashed it. So thank you all so much for the support. And of course, as you can tell from the title, I'll be sharing with you all my Europa League predictions today. Still though, if you want to see the Conference League, please hit that like button, just letting me know that you guys are still staying tuned with these prediction videos. Also, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, let me know your own predictions down below. I'm bound to get quite a few wrong. There are some interesting groups in this competition, just like the Champions League. So let's get straight into it, starting off with Group A. We've got West Ham, Olympiacos, Freiburg, and Bajka Topola. Now, of course, anything is possible in this group. However, there is what looks to be a favorite to get first place. Many people are probably going to predict this, and I'm going to have to agree with the public. It's West Ham. We shouldn't sleep on the other clubs, especially Olympiacos and Freiburg. But West Ham, despite not having the most brilliant Premier League season, they did still win a trophy. One from one of the UEFA competitions, obviously, the Europa Conference League. Declan Rice, who captained this side to victory in that tournament, has now left to Arsenal. West Ham sold him for a very heavy fee of 116 million. But they used that money to add more depth in the midfield. They signed two incredible players from Ajax, Kudus and Alvarez. They also signed James Ward-Prowse from Southampton, one of the most fantastic free kick takers, and the very physical Greek center back Mavropanos. Sure, the club will miss Declan Rice, but it's not like they already have a lot of solid players and a solid foundation. Not only did they win the Conference League last season, but the season before that in the Europa League, they made it quite far. So in recent times, they do have experience in this competition. It would be cool to see another club top this group instead, but I think it's safe to say West Ham got it. Now, obviously, I hope I'm wrong on this. As many of you know, I do support the ex-Yugoslavian clubs, but I do think Bajka Topola is going to get 4th place. Last season, the Serbian club finished 2nd place behind Crvena Zvezda, and domestically, at the moment, they are very much in form. At the time of this recording, they are undefeated. Crvena Zvezda were undefeated last season, but this season, they already picked up their first loss. Definitely watch out for the likes of Sasha Jovanovic, who was the top goal scorer and assister last season for the club. They definitely have what it takes to show the fighting spirit and can make this group interesting, but I think it's safe to put them in 4th, as we've seen last season, Crvena Zvezda, like I stated, were undefeated last season, yet they finished 4th place in their group in the Europa League. This is also quite the difficult group where both Olympiacos and Freiburg are known to have quite a bit of experience in this competition or other European competitions. Prove me wrong, Bajka Topola, but I'm sorry. I think 4th place is safe. Now, for those of you that don't already know, 2nd place in the Europa League stays in the competition, but they have to go through an extra playoff round against the 3rd place Champions League teams. And then 3rd place in the Europa League has to do the same thing, except they get demoted to the Conference League and play 2nd place in every Conference League group. So which club do I think is going to stay, Olympiacos or Freiburg? If we're going to take a look at last season's Europa League campaign, Freiburg do look to be the favorites. They were in the same group as Olympiacos, and they topped the group, while Olympiacos finished dead last with 0 wins. I'm a fan of the Olympiacos squad, obviously. They've got the likes of Jovetic, an absolute veteran to the game. This season, they also made quite a lot of loan signings. But Freiburg, to me, definitely have a more solid foundation at the moment. They also have way more experience against Olympiacos, as we've seen last season. Head-to-head, they drew once, and then Freiburg beat them 3-0. Not so relevant, but they did play each other also in 2013, where Freiburg also beat them there. So Olympiacos have never beaten this club. I'm sorry, Olympiacos, please prove me wrong, but I think you guys are going to go to the Conference League. Freiburg stay in the competition and compete in the Europa League playoffs. Let's move on to Group B now, which many people are considering to be the group of death this year in the competition. Ajax, Marseille, Brighton, and AEK Athens. This is the toughest one to call for sure. Not an ideal group for Brighton, as this is their debut in European football. However, this club's development over the years has been absolutely extraordinary. Players or managers, whoever ends up leaving the club, leaves critics doubtful for them. And no matter what comes their way, they still end up being in form. Sure, they lost their incredible midfield last season on McAllister and Caicedo, as they have both gone to Liverpool and Chelsea, but they just took Barcelona's number 10 Ansu Fati on loan. In terms of players they already possess, Evan Ferguson is continuing to develop. He also just scored a hat-trick against Newcastle. He definitely looks to have an incredible career ahead of him. I don't mean to heavily praise the Premier League teams, but I feel like they deserve it. Brighton especially, I think they're going to get first place. Both Ajax and Marseille kind of hold some solid identity to their club as well, but both of them have gone through some quite interesting rebuilds. Ajax in particular, many people are a bit concerned about as they don't look to be in the best of form at the time of this recording, and they also got rid of many of their best players. However, something I technically just praised Brighton for, Ajax do as well, where they really love to find young talent across the world and develop them, sell them on later on for quite a bit of cash. Perfect example is all the players they just got rid of, and they have done it yet again. They've signed the likes of Tahirovic, a solid center defensive mid from Bosnia, signed 3 Croatians for their back line, Šutalo and Sosa, who have been in the World Cup squad in Qatar, along with Jakov Medic from St. Pauli. Up top, they signed 2 players that played in second division clubs last season, but did go on to get 30+ direct goal contributions. Marseille, also with quite the rebuild, got Lodi from Atletico, Ismail Assar from Watford, Sheffield United's best player from last season, Ndaye, Correa from Inter Milan, Aubameyang for free, plus many more. So this squad is also looking to be a bit revamped. No more Alexis Sanchez as well. I think second or third is going to be between these 2 clubs. I'm going to put AEK at 4th. Wishing this club the best, obviously. They have a lot of experienced players on this side, and they definitely will produce one of the most hostile home atmospheres you could ask for. But I really think they got unlucky in this draw. If they were in a different group, I would potentially praise them higher. Really hate to do the Greek clubs dirty in this video. Would love to see them and Olympiacos prove me wrong. And in that sense, who knows? The likes of Marseille can definitely struggle against AEK, as in the last Champions League qualifiers they came up against another Greek club, Panathinaikos, where they did struggle there, losing on penalties over 2 legs. That's why they're in the Europa League instead, and I don't know, guys. This is one of the toughest groups to call. Ajax's form is also going to be very unpredictable with all the new players they signed. I'm really not sure how they're going to be doing, but I'm going to say they find their way. I do believe in some of the new signings that they brought, especially the likes of Šutalo. He was really phenomenal at Dinamo Zagreb, and even when he played for the Croatian national team, he proved his worth. Sounds like a biased reason, obviously, but I do believe Ajax can come out, pull through to second place. Marseille falls short to third. Why? Because maybe AEK can kind of drag them down. I'm going to stick with AEK at 4th place, but Marseille do get caught slipping. Maybe they have a strong start, but then eventually fall down. Won't be surprised if I'm wrong on any of this. Really won't even be surprised if AEK prove me wrong themselves. But this is what I'm sticking with. Moving on to Group C, we've got Rangers, Real Betis, Sparta Praha, and the club from Cyprus, Aris Limassol. Not an easy group to call either, but I think it's safe to put the Cypriot club at 4th place. So sorry, guys. Shout out to them for getting first place last year domestically, but this is a tough group filled with a lot of experience in this competition. I don't see them competing all too much. Rangers recently had an absolute roller coaster in European football, making it to the Europa League final and then becoming the worst ever team to participate in the Champions League. That's right, statistically they had the worst ever run out of any club in history, with no wins and a -20 goal difference. They did lose one of their more well-known players, Ryan Kent, as he's gone to Fenerbahce for free. However, they did just pick up a center forward from Feyenoord who got 13 direct goal contributions last season in the Eredivisie, the Brazilian Danilo. They haven't had the most convincing start to this season. In the Champions League qualifiers, they did lose to PSV 7-3 on aggregate, which sent them to the Europa League. I could be wrong on this, but I believe they're already looking to replace the manager Michael Beale. So yeah, lots of mystery going on for this club. At the moment, they definitely don't look like the favorites to top this group. Real Betis, on the other hand, I think are the favorites. I'm going to put them at 1st place. They got 1st place last year in the Europa League group over Roma, also being undefeated. Their squad's looking very interesting this year, already a very solid foundation from last year as well, but they also have some great additions, including the likes of Isco, who was a free agent for a while. Very excited to see how he does. Although I didn't touch on Sparta Praha yet, I think it's safe to say that Real Betis are going to get 1st place. Sparta Praha definitely have a solid chance to compete to go to the next round in the Europa League though. In the qualifiers for this competition, they pulled off an incredible comeback against Dinamo Zagreb. They were 3-1 down after the first leg, but then beat Dinamo 4-1 in the second, making the aggregate 5-4. There's some impressive players on here, such as Lukas Haraldsson, who's already their top goal scorer, Jan Kuchta, who just transferred from Lokomotiv Moscow. I wouldn't be surprised if this club tops Rangers based on the state both clubs are in. I mean, Rangers not only got rid of Ryan Kent, they also got rid of some other players that kind of solidified a spot last season. So despite the kind of mess they're looking at it, I'm going to say that they picked themselves back up over time. Might be a slow start, but eventually they have what it takes to get 2nd place just over Sparta Praha. So Sparta Praha get demoted to the Conference League. Rangers stay in the playoffs. We'll see what happens. Now moving on to Group D with Atalanta, Sporting, SK Sturm Graz, and Rakow Częstochowa. I'm sorry, I know I'm butchering that name. This club did win the Ekstraklasa last season, being amongst the best clubs in Poland. And we cannot sleep on Polish clubs in these competitions. Take a look at Lech Poznan last season in the Conference League, for example. They could definitely put off some thrilling fights, but I do think they will be outmatched at the end and get 4th place. Maybe they could just edge SK Sturm Graz, as this club does make European competitions, but they always seem to be let down. The worst example was last season when they were in the group where every single club got 8 points and they just happened to be at the bottom. Unfortunately. Very unfortunate way to go out. Who knows, this club could get outclassed by the Polish club, but I do think they have what it takes to at least secure a Conference League position. I'm going to say they get 3rd place. But then for the top 2, Atalanta and Sporting. Gonna be a difficult one to call. Sporting have just had an amazing transfer window after selling Ugarte and Pedro Porro. They made a lot of money for the two and improved their attack, signing Victor Gyökeres from Coventry City for 20 million. The Swedish striker got 31 direct goal contributions in the championship last season, and also signed Lecce's captain Hjulman, a very solid center defensive mid, to fill in that Ugarte role. They've also replaced Pedro Porro with the 18-year-old Fresneda. Ruben Amorim has already proved his class from last season. Fantastic manager who can definitely challenge for that top spot. Let's not forget he also knocked out Arsenal in the Europa League last season. Atalanta are going to be missing their forward now, who is in fantastic form, Holyund, as he has gone to Manchester United. This club sometimes comes off with big wins but also just randomly disappears for a bit, so it's really hard to tell how they will progress. Could go either way, of course, but I'm going to say Sporting top the group, Atalanta second. Might be an unpopular pick, but I believe in Sporting to advance straight to the round of 16. Moving on to Group E with Liverpool, LASK, Union St. Galois, and Toulouse. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to go for another Premier League to top the group. Liverpool look like heavy favorites here. In fact, at the moment, before all the other teams come pouring in from the Champions League, they look like the favorites to win the competition. Sure, a lot of their players have departed, but they signed some new ones, totally revamping their midfield. They shouldn't underestimate the other teams, of course, in this group. In fact, Union St. Galois had a remarkable Europa League campaign last year. Maybe they could slow them down at some point, but I definitely don't see Liverpool getting any less than 5 wins. Union St. Galois should look like favorites to get 2nd place, but they are now losing some of their best players. Boniface has gone to Bayer Leverkusen, and Teddy Teuma, one of the most fantastic Malta players, has gone to France. Club also appointed German manager Blessen, who is not the same as last season. Did suffer one heavy loss against Michelin, but other than that, he's been grabbing only wins. The German striker Jense is looking to be in top form so far. He has gotten 5 goals in 5 matches. So even though the squad does look a bit different, they can still definitely challenge themselves in the Europa League. That being said though, Toulouse's attack does look a bit dangerous. Particularly the attacker Aboukal has already scored 3 goals this season, but surprisingly this club did not do so well in Ligue 1. They finished 13th. I'm going to be a bit more brief on this group than the others. Despite Union St. Galois' massive changes and departing some of their best players, I'm going to say they get 2nd place. Toulouse 3rd, they go to the Conference League, and LASK get 4th. I tend to doubt the Austria clubs quite a bit over the years, and usually, I'm sorry to say, but it pays off. Alright, so from here on out, it's a brand new day as my camera decided to stop recording right after I went over that group, and I just didn't even notice. So I'll do my best to repeat everything I've already said. We are in Group F now with Villarreal, Rennes, Panathinaikos, and Maccabi Haifa. A group with 2 heavy favorites, but also these underdogs can definitely have a tale of their own. We've seen Maccabi Haifa last season in the Champions League finish last place, but they did beat Juventus in one of the matches. And they were also in one of the most deadliest groups, so the fact that they even got a win in the first place is very impressive. Panathinaikos have been putting off solid fights. Their last match in the Champions League qualifiers was a loss to Braga, which is why they're in the Europa League instead. But before then, like I mentioned, they did upset the likes of Marseille on penalties, so who knows, maybe they can once again disappoint another French club. This seems to be a similar theme from many clubs already discussed, but Rennes got rid of a lot of great players. Jeremy Doku has gone to Manchester City. He was absolutely electric. The Croatian Maya has gone to Wolfsburg, but they did gain the likes of experienced Nemanja Matic, who definitely is not at his prime anymore, but definitely can still add value to the club. Fabian Ryder, one of Young Boys' best players last season. They're a solid squad, but they are guilty of being inconsistent, so I would not be surprised if one of these quote-unquote underdogs brings them down. Villarreal also losing some key players like Pau Torres and Nicholas Jackson, but they did gain the Norwegian Sorloth, who actually had a pretty solid spell at Real Sociedad for a bit of time throughout last season. So far, they have not had a brilliant start to La Liga, getting 1 win out of 4 matches. They have had quite a difficult schedule at first, playing the likes of Real Betis and Barcelona, but then they lost to Cadiz 3-1. Obviously, this is probably going to age terribly, but out of all the groups, this is the one where I see a potential upset the most happening though. Villarreal and Rennes could easily be prone to some kind of slip. Which one's it going to be? I see one of them still advancing to the knockouts. At first, I'm going to cling on to Rennes. Second place, let's go for Panathinaikos. Third, Villarreal. And fourth, Maccabi Haifa. Gonna age terribly. Most people are gonna go for Villarreal and Rennes to advance, but here is my quote-unquote upset. I haven't really gone for many so far, and I think there's a genuine possibility of one being here, as I'm not too convinced, like I already mentioned many times, with either Villarreal or Rennes. Group G seems a bit more straightforward. We've got Roma, who were Europa League finalists last year, Slavia Praha, Sheriff, and the Swiss club Servette. I do think it's going to finish in this order. Many people are speculating how Roma will do this season, but Jose Mourinho has already solidified his legacy that he knows what he's doing in these cup competitions. Sure, he just narrowly lost the last Europa League final, but he's going to want to get redemption, and he has a very doable group to secure first place in my opinion. They vastly improved their depth in the attack with the likes of Lukaku and Azmoun. Maybe Roma will slip once again in this competition at some point, but it's going to be later on. So yeah, first place for me, easy choice. Slavia Praha last season shared the same amount of points with Sparta Praha, yet did not secure first, which is crazy. I think they're going to have some rocky displays here and there. I'm particularly looking at Sheriff to potentially challenge them. As we've already seen, their first Champions League appearance, well, I think it was their first Champions League appearance, correct me if I'm wrong, they beat Real Madrid, the champions that year. Last season in the Europa League, they finished third in a difficult group. Then they were put in the Conference League where they made it out of the playoffs, but then lost later on. I think based on their European experience already, they can just edge Servette. Don't underestimate the Swiss club though. I'm very familiar with the likes of their right winger from Bosnia, Stevanovic. He got loads of assists last season, but at the moment he is injured. It's a solid club that can prove me wrong. They could maybe secure that Conference League spot, but I think it's going to end in this order. And the final group we're looking at, Group H, with Bayer Leverkusen, Karabakh, Molde, and Haken. Let's be brief here and just point out what should be the obvious. Of course, anything's possible. It's football. Bayer Leverkusen are going to get first place. Xabi Alonso has done a fantastic job with this club last year. They had some absolutely dramatic results going their way in the Europa League for the most part. They made it all the way to the semi-finals and lost to Roma. Yes, they just lost Moussa Diaby and Azmoun, but they gained Grimaldo from Benfica, Tella from Southampton, Boniface from Union St. Gilloise, Granit Xhaka from Arsenal, Stanisic from Bayern Munich. I could go on and on about how much great individuality there is in this squad, but they have proven last season that they work so well together as a unit. Shouldn't underestimate these clubs, of course, but definitely on paper, they do outmatch them. The rest, I think it's fair game. Karabakh last season in the Europa League got third place with 2 wins and 2 draws. Haken did win Allsvenskan last season, but we can't forget they did get embarrassed in the Champions League qualifiers to the club from Faroe Islands, Klaksvik. Despite Klaksvik being a very impressive club, there's just no way we can really rely on the Swedish club's consistency at that point. And then Molde narrowly losing to Galatasaray on the final round of the Champions League qualifiers, but currently 4th in the Norwegian league. After winning it last season themselves, they did definitely slow down the gears a little bit, as they've already picked up more losses this season than last. So I'm going to go for this, although I'm not confident about it at all. Molde 2nd, Karabakh 3rd, and Haken 4th. All those matches are going to be flips of coin in my opinion though. But yeah guys, those are all of my Europa League predictions for this season. Let me know any disagreements you have in the comments below. Love to learn from you guys as well if I missed on any other information. And don't forget to hit that like button if you want to see Conference League predictions as well. If your club is playing in this competition, best of luck to them. I will see you all very, very soon. Take care. La Noche.